Hello, I'm here today with Lloyd Manokore, who is the founder of Emerging Africa, which is a boutique consultancy based in Harare, Zimbabwe, which helps businesses to enter and grow across African markets. And I'm going to spend a little bit of time discussing with him today some of the issues around the current state of Africa. So, first of all, Lloyd, could you tell us a little bit about your Pan-African background?
Yes, I've been involved in cross-border Pan-African work since 1998, thereabouts, 98, 99. I think is when I sort of undertook my first assignment when I was still in full-time employment, which was basically taking my employer then taking their business interests across a multiplicity of jurisdictions. And I guess that's when the Africa bug bit, and I took a keen interest in this sizable continent with all its complexities and the challenges that face it. So that journey has been going on for since then in various capacities. Obviously, as I mentioned earlier on, starting off working as an in-house counsel. As you're aware that I'm a lawyer by training, I'm a corporate lawyer. So I worked as in-house counsel and then transitioned into running my own business and operating as a consultant, as well as an investor. So my involvement with Africa has been as a service provider or as an advisor, as well as somebody who's put capital in harm's way in some form, shape, or the other, and across a multiplicity of geographies. And I suppose one could say, I'm a sucker for punishment, but it has been an absolutely wonderful journey from a learning point of view.
You seem to have a perfect set of credentials for helping organisations work effectively within an African landscape. And I just wondered if you could tell me a little bit about your organisation, Emerging Africa, and what the objectives are of the company.
You did mention earlier on, I mean, I'm originally from Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe is home, but Emerging Africa is the proposition is put simply a platform for Pan-African business linkages. Over the years, I have observed the challenges that people face. So you tend to have capital looking for opportunities and opportunities looking for capital, and there's a general disconnect and tremendous frustration by either side. And we felt that the time had come, not just necessarily this year, but I think it's been building up over the last 2-3 years, based on the experience of the transactions that we've been doing, that there was need to do further handholding and perhaps at times defining opportunities in conjunction with those who are interested in those opportunities, so that you sort of cut down transaction time and you try and make sure that you direct the capital to where it wants to go to. So the person who's receiving the capital understands what the expectations of the provider of the capital is, so that there's no crisis of expectation.
So, Lloyd, I talk to a lot of people in the West about Africa as a potential market for expansion, and sometimes, people say Africa, it's a bit of a nightmare, isn't it? So, Africa, it's a nightmare. Is that true or false?
Keith, I think it's the age-old question of, depends on your perception. And of course, at times perception is significant. It can sway decisions. And I think that sort of generalization comes from various adverse experiences that people have endured. But I think, one has to take a step back and say, generalizing about a continent of 54 countries in excess of 1 billion people, and just coming up with the general statement that it is a nightmare, I think it's a bit misdirecting yourself. Just like any other place that you would visit, there will be the good and the bad. that you've got to be able to look out for. I think Africa's challenge has been, its story has for many years been told by others who profess to know about it. And Africans ourselves have not taken enough time to speak about what our ambitions are, what constitutes success to us, what drives us, and so you'd understand when somebody says it's generally a nightmare. It could be because of at times challenges with infrastructure. It could be on delivery of certain services, telecommunications, transport linkages, et cetera. But the flip side of that coin is all opportunity. And I actually think that where we find ourselves now in where and why the proposition of Emerging Africa and other initiatives with colleagues in our ecosystem that we've been talking about is that there's now a confluence. There's a wonderful confluence in our view of various factors that we believe are more positive than negative pertaining to the Africa story. And I could sort of maybe touch on 2 or 3 of those. Obviously, a market is people. And there's a lot that is being said about the youth or population dividend that Africa is delivering to the world. So it's a significant market that is going to consume and is going to produce. It's just basic numbers. That's just the reality of it. I think that youth dividend is intersecting with technology and the 4th industrial revolution. So it's not odd for you to land in Africa and hear people talking about blockchain, talking about products that are associated with blockchain, the Bitcoins, Bitcoin clearing warehouses, et cetera, and people really getting immersed in the world of tech and the intersection of traditional businesses and technology, whether it's fintech, agri-tech, et cetera, et cetera. So that's another big issue that is driving this perhaps positivity. And I guess the third one, which and kudos to the leaders and the people of Africa who have seen the importance of trying to make it a more manageable and workable market through the Africa Trade Agreement. Everybody, I mean, the naysayers have said this is impossible. How are you going to get 54 countries to all speak the same language? And I think a lot of those countries have already proven people wrong because nations have ratified that agreement in record time. And I think it's a recognition that it's important for Africans to trade amongst themselves. It's important for Africans to be able to move freely. And that builds confidence, it builds linkages. And if there's confidence on the ground, it should then improve the confidence factor for those who feel that it's a nightmare, because you know what business is like. It's really driven by confidence, isn't it?
It's certainly true, I think, Lloyd, that Africa has a number of challenges ahead of it. But from my perspective of working across Africa, it seems to me that one of the biggest challenges that Africa has is an image problem outside Africa. What can Africa do to address that image problem?
I guess because image is built by a lens that's driven through certain media channels, which you don't have control over. And I'm supremely delighted that the advent of platforms like YouTube and other social media platforms are by themselves changing this narrative, because people are able to communicate without the editorial filters, what is happening on the ground. So I think social media is very, very important, very powerful, and a tool that has been significantly embraced across the length and breadth of the continent. I think it's also very important for Africans and those further afield to have an honest conversation and to sit around the table and, mutual respect. We've heard this mentioned, when you go to Asia and other places, that people talk about the importance of being viewed as an equal. Never mind that I may not have as much as you, but we all human at the end of the day, aren't we? So I think Africa, at least where I live, and the people that I engage with, I think we are more concerned and focusing on, let's work to improve our circumstances, and the story will tell itself. And if the story tells itself with those successes, the whole image changes.
Lloyd, Africa, it's a massive place, lots of opportunities across lots of different sectors. Which sectors would you say are hot at the moment, and which sectors are going to be hot over the next few years?
That's a very difficult one because, the opportunities are just so diverse. But if I go back to what I said early on about, the confluence of factors or events, it would help to inform what to focus on. Because what is Africa known for? It's known for resources. So I think resources will continue to be a big focus area. So be it oil and gas or it's mining. And again, depends on what resources you're going after. But Africa is the resource supplier to the world. So we get a lot of inquiries around resource extraction. And what I'll just quickly highlight there is that I think the manner in which you're going to extract resources going forward is going to be different from the historical one. I think there's significant consideration for ESG now.
Yeah.
And making sure that this is sustainable and that the owners of those resources also stand to benefit.
That's one. I think people think minerals
yes,
when they think Africa, but Africa's a lot more than just minerals, isn't it? There's a lot of other opportunities.
It is absolutely huge. I mean, Africa is also the food store for the future of the world. Arable land, food, water. All those are projects that we're working on. Africa is, there's opportunities in infrastructure build, because all of this, if there's no underpin for infrastructure build, then it's very difficult for you to deliver a high-end benefit, factory, if you don't have power, if you don't have water, if you don't have roads, if you don't have rail, and so forth.
But also, when you look at population growth, and you look at some city, the projections for the growth of some cities. I mean, the cities in Africa are looking like they could be the largest cities in the world in the next 20 to 30 years, aren't they? So there must be opportunities as well.
Mega cities, I think there will be, you already, if I just think places I've been to that have more than sort of 15 million people, Cairo, Lagos, obviously, those are what comes to mind. Let's not underestimate as well, Keith. I mean, I must say to you, and one thing that Africa is known for has been the way it has revolutionized telecommunications and technology. Yeah. Where effectively mobile money it's the more the common than not. Mm-hmm. You most likely find people trading using mobile payment platforms as opposed to the exchange of cash. So all these things that I'm mentioning have mainstreamed. I think that's the important message that I would like to share with you, is that they are not fringe anymore. They've mainstreamed, and you have tech hubs. You have, young people who are writing code and setting up businesses which are in the cloud. And, I think there's a company that's done a tremendous job, founded by my fellow Zimbabwean, which is Liquid Africa. I think it's called Liquid Intelligent Technologies. And they've built a fiber optic network across the length and the breadth of the continent. Yeah. That just unlocks bandwidth. And of course, on that bandwidth, their ability to get into e-commerce and other applications and activities, the diversity of the economy is I think what is interesting a lot of people. It's not just around sort of one commodity. It's the multiplicity of sectors that are of interest, whether it's mining, agriculture, and of course, its geographical positioning is very essential to how the economy of Southern Africa operates, because it's right in the heart of so logistics wise, for you to do anything meaningful in Southern Africa, you cannot bypass or ignore the importance of traversing through Zimbabwe. So I think the authorities are doing a good job of preaching the virtues that Zimbabwe is open for business, and looking to build up on the promising future. But if I step back around where else could you be looking? You see, Africa, as I said to you earlier on, is complex, it's big, and is by nature divided into geographies of east, north, west, and south. And each of those geographies are influenced by history. What we are seeing is, firstly, within the continent, a repositioning by organizations that perhaps used to confine themselves only to the north, but are now looking to expand to the south or to the east or the west. So we're talking and trading more and investing more. You see Nigerian banks that are moving their capital further south and getting in and acquiring interest in financial institutions in Southern Africa, and so forth. So there's the dynamic of internal trade that is happening itself, and then of course the interest that we see from external. China, I'm sure you do a lot of work with China, and China's focus and activity on the African continent, which in itself is evolving. The first time I did work with Chinese clients 7-8 years ago is so different to the work that I do for them now, because the way they invest and what they're looking at has changed. Mm-hmm. So I think is what's very important, Keith, to highlight is, if you're looking at Africa and you want to operate in Africa, I think you'd ask yourself the question, why am I going there? Where am I going? And what do I know about it? And if you don't, do your research. Make sure you do a lot of homework.
It's been absolutely fascinating for me, Lloyd. Thanks very much. I think, as you said, Africa is such a massive place. We've talked about it for half an hour. We've barely scratched the tip of what is an enormous iceberg. And I think there are other things that we could possibly really profitably explore in the future. But just for now, thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate it. I know you're a very busy man. And just, anybody who's watching this, if you're thinking of Africa, you want some advice, you want somebody to talk to, then I, would thoroughly recommend you get in touch with Lloyd, because he really does know what he's talking about these issues. So thanks very much, Lloyd, and we'll talk again soon.
Thanks, Keith. And it's been great engaging and talking, and looking forward to you coming to visit us again, hopefully sooner than later.